What's up, everybody? It is your man, Mike Gilbert, and this is the first episode of the Witching Hour right here on the Mike and JD Show Patreon. And it might make its way to YouTube. I don't know. We'll see. Based on feedback, we'll see. We'll see if this continues. We'll see if I start spreading this everywhere. I don't know. This has been something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. JD and I talked about it about 6 months ago, and I had this idea in my head for a while. And I had talked to some of my friends, and we were pitching around ideas, and then one day I just decided to go for it, and that day was like 4 days ago. So I put together some notes. I was reading some stories. Then I'd been following the congressional hearings for UAP and UFO transparency. And so I was put together some notes and just kind of looking at some fun stories from around the web, and I put together some notes, and like not like a full script, but like you guys will be able to tell that there's gonna be some stuff that I'm reading verbatim. That way I get the information correct. But I started putting all that together, and I was gonna do this on Friday night. This is Monday night, but I just couldn't stay awake. And then I was trying again Saturday night, and then Sunday night, and then tonight I was not going to do it, but my wife asked me to go run some errands late at night. I'm wide awake. I have everything that I need. I have my intro video, my intro song. Oh, excuse me. Get a swig of water. But yeah, it's been something I've been wanting to do for years because I'm interested in like UFOs, conspiracies, and cryptids. I've never really been a paranormal guy, but I do think that belongs on this show. So that's going to be something that I read more into. Um, but if you guys like this show, or if you have information, if you have stories, if you know of some stories that you would like for me to talk about on this podcast, send me a link to the story, and if it's like good and credible and it's interesting, I can bring it up here. This is not going to be a weekly thing or a regular thing. This is going to be like as I get time, and if I get ideas in my head, and then there's interesting stuff that I want to talk about, I'll talk about it here. But JD and I, like from the beginning of this podcast, we've talked about weird stuff anyway. So every once in a while, I would just bring out some weirdness. Like I would show UFO videos, and I would show different things, and talk about different stories from around the world. But I kind of wanted to harness that into this show. It's called the Witching Hour. Now it might not go an hour. It might go over an hour. It just depends on what we got going on that week. Where did I get the name? Well, witching hour is kind of a commonly used term, but I actually got the name from NFL Red Zone because there's like the final hour of the morning games, and that's where the most games are happening. They call it the witching hour, where wins become losses and losses become wins. And I had been, watching it every week, and I was like, the witching hour, the witching hour. That is a cool name for a podcast, because the original idea of this podcast was going to be called Mysteries of the Unexplained. And I thought that was a cool name too, but it's like, it kind of sounds like your prototypical podcast or documentary series. Like if I Googled it, I'd probably find 10 different shows that were that name. And there's some other people calling them, doing witching hour type stuff, but I think for the most part, this is going to be mine. And I dig that. Plus, Mysteries of the Unexplained. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about will probably also be explained, because I also want to get into like dark history, some serial killer stuff, like when there's new documentaries out. Like I just recently watched the Zodiac, and I talked about it on the Mike and JD show, but things like that, like when that comes out and I'm checking them out, I'll talk about them here. And then of course, if there's any type of new World War II documentaries that come out, or even World War I, I'll watch them and I'll report back on them here. But for the first episode, we're going to pull back the veil of reality and explore strange, unexplained, and downright terrifying stuff. And of course, I am your host, Mike Gilbert. And tonight we will delve into stories that challenge what we think and we know about our world, from unidentified aerial phenomena and strange animal attacks to supernatural suspicions and infamous unsolved mysteries. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and prepare for an hour, maybe more, maybe less, of chilling tales and fascinating theories. The clock has struck the witching hour, and it's time to begin. I like that. So we're going to keep that line in here. So let's start with something that's been making waves in recent years, unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, formerly known as UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or back in the day they were called flying saucers. This issue has been happening for decades upon decades upon decades, going all the way back to the Roswell crash of 1947. And the reason why it remains like in the forefront and why it's blossomed into this huge thing is because the government just refuses to tell us the truth about what's going on with this stuff, dating all the way back to the Roswell mystery, right? If you guys remember the Roswell crash, and I think I'm going to do a full episode just on Roswell because I'm just so fascinated by it. But I'll give you a Cliff's Notes version if you're unfamiliar with it. But back in 1940, I believe in 1947, at Roswell Army Air Base, so it was not an Air Force base, but an Army airfield, there was a crash of some sort. Well, the initial reports from the base, what they told the public was that it was a flying saucer. So, like, they started it, right? And then media shows up and all these people show up, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh no, it was just a weather balloon of some sort. And so that was immediately a lie. And there was a lot more into that that story. I'm going to get into that one day. But that's where they told the lie, and that was the beginning of us realizing that our government is lying to us about UFOs, UAPs, flying saucers, and all that stuff. That was immediately a lie. Later in the 1990s, they published a new report saying that it was actually spy balloons, that they were trying to spy on our adversaries. Now, from New Mexico, I don't know about that. But that's what they said in the 1990s. And it seems really thin to me that is the case. So we have not been able to trust these people for a long time. 2017, New York Times posted a big article about these special access programs that are hidden within the government that nobody knew about, that our tax dollars are going to. These special access programs, we call them USAP, SAPs, all kinds of stuff. There's going to be a lot of acronyms as the more I dive into these stories. But the New York Times posted an article about it saying that we have these programs in place where we're studying UFOs, we're studying these phenomenons, and then they actually release some videos of different UFO sightings and things like that from our military, from like Navy and Air Force and things like that. So that kind of opened the door wide open. And then, of course, last year when David Grush, a former Air Force intelligence officer and a member of AARO, and I'll get into that acronym in a second, he went on News Nation, and I think he had, I cannot remember the name of the publication, but I just remember being on News Nation with Ross Coulthart. And if you're not following Ross Coulthart, he's a good follow for this type of stuff. But and basically exposed that he knew of crash retrieval programs and the different UAP programs that we have in place, and never really outright said that we actually have, like, we actually have crashed UAP, crashed UFO in America. We're holding them. And he said that, and then he went before Congress. And I remember Nancy Mace, actually, Republican out of South Carolina, asked him about pilots. Have we recovered pilots, biologics pilots? And he said yes. They never said the word aliens, but he said yes. So let's go ahead and get into the latest hearing. So we had more hearings a couple weeks ago in front of Congress. So governments around the world have been investigating these sightings, and the U.S. is no exception. Congress has been holding hearings, including one this year titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Exposure to the Truth. This year hearing featured testimony from key experts, including retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, former Pentagon official Luis Elizondo. Lou also has a book out. I have not gotten it yet, but I will. And Michael Gold, a member of NASA's UAP Independent Study Team. Elizondo testified that the U.S. government not only has evidence of UAPs, but has also conducted crash retrieval programs designed to reverse engineer alien technology. Now, he never said the word alien, but that is what the article states. He said, and I quote, "Let me be clear, UAP are real. The U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies." Now think about that for a moment. If this is true, It changes everything that we think we know about the boundaries of human technology and human life in the universe, or life anywhere. And there's the Pentagon's All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW. So that's what I was telling you about earlier. They've been collecting UAP reports and analyzing cases dating back to 1996. ARROW's director, John Kozlowski, says they haven't found any verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial activity yet. But here's the strange part. Many of these sightings remain unexplained. So they're saying that they have all these sightings, but they don't know anything about them. So weird. One of the more intriguing theories involves supposed secretive intelligence operation called Immaculate Constellation. So this is like a White House generated program. Now, I read the entire Immaculate Constellation report. This report, there's 12 pages, and it's out there. You can Google it. Which, like, what a cool name, right? Immaculate Constellation. But it's like another access program inside of an access program, but this one was commissioned by the White House itself. Now, he doesn't say at what time the White House commissioned it, but the Michael Schellenberger, who's a really good journalist, by the way, very much into free speech and very much into UAP transparency. But he said that this program collects high-quality imagery and data about UAPs and uses advanced technologies to monitor these phenomena. So he, in his report and his on his website public, he says that we have like high-quality images and videos of UAP that'll blow your minds. But they just need to get inside of a SCIF. So a SCIF is like a room where you can divulge classified and confidential information. And that was kind of what Lou Elizondo and Tim Gallaudet were saying over and over and over again, to the point it was a bit, it was getting to be a bit annoying. it really was. But so anyway, Schellenberger, a journalist who unveiled the secret intelligence operation called Immaculate Constellation, claims this program monitors UAPs with advanced technology. I already said that, including a recent incident where an F-22 fighter jet was boxed in by 3 to 6 unidentified objects. Schellenberger shared a whistleblower report detailing how these craft outmaneuvered the jet, forcing to change its trajectory. So who or what is piloting these objects? And that's what we need to find out. Nobody really knows. Tim Gallaudet, Rear Admiral, brought his own shocking story to the table. He was a part of a 2015 naval exercise that resulted in the now famous Go Fast video. This clip, captured by a Navy FA-18 jet, shows a craft moving at speeds and with maneuverability that defy our understanding of physics. Which, even stranger, Gallaudet testified that an email containing the video was sent to him and other commanders, only to mysteriously vanish the next day from everyone's inbox. No explanation, no trace. NASA's Michael Gold added another layer to the conversation by addressing the stigma surrounding UAP research. He argued that the scientific community needs funding and declassified data to properly study these phenomena. Gold summed it up perfectly. The truth is out there. We just need to be brave enough to face it. By the end of the hearing, it was clear that Congress is demanding transparency. But even with all this testimony, the question remains the same. Are we dealing with advanced human technology or something far beyond our understanding? I think that's the big question here. And Elon Musk and other experts have said that a lot of what we're seeing is just secret military aircraft out there, and the military hiding like our new technology and just testing out aircraft that nobody's ever seen before. And so they don't know what it is, so they call it a UFO, UAP. And that stuff does exist. Like Area 51 is a real place. And they test out new aircraft and new technology out there all the time. And there's other military bases around the world that are doing the same. But the problem is that what these people are seeing, and if you go back and you look at the Tic Tac video and you look at all the other videos, is that these craft defy all logic. These craft are going infinitely faster than anything that we've ever seen before. They're maneuvering in a way that defies all technology. So if we have the technology already and we're just not telling anybody about it, that's weird. Or is it is this something? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it coming from? Could it be coming from outer space? Or as David Grush theorized at his congressional hearing last year, could it be coming from a different dimension? Now, the different dimension thing, that's fascinating to me because I think that if these craft, and some of them have been as large as a football field, right? The Vandenberg UFO, which I really need to dig into because I was stationed there for 4 years and I didn't know about it. No one ever talked to me about it. And I worked a lot of like overnight launches and things like that. And I never saw anything, by the way. But not once did anybody and the people that have been there for a long time ever even talk about that. So I would be curious to see what people still know about that. So that's something that I need to look into more. But at the Vandenberg one, they said that it was like a football field wide, right? So if it's a football field wide and it's coming through the atmosphere, you would think that is something that we'd pick up on radar, right? But then, there's a lot of these sightings are saying, and pilots are saying that the radar gets jammed and they're catching them on the thermal cameras because they can't catch them with regular cameras. There's a lot of weird, crazy stuff out there. But you'd think that like satellite data would pick this stuff up. So if it's not coming from outer space, could they be coming from another dimension? Now, I think that's fascinating, especially as a guy who is like, I like Quantum Leap and, and time travel, and of course, the Marvel universe where they're going through different dimensions and things like that. That is fascinating to me. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, and hopefully we get some more information about stuff like that. But did we learn anything particularly new during these congressional hearings? Not really, but what they did do is very important. They got Immaculate Constellation in the congressional record, right? They're pushing our politicians towards transparency, and it seemed like both the congressional hearings from last year and this year that it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, Democrats or Republicans. Republicans more so, I would say. They seem to be more into this. Specifically Nancy Mace and Anna Paula Luna and Tim Burchett from Tennessee seem to be really into it. But AOC will seem to be into it. And there was another guy, I can't remember his name. I think he might have been a New York guy, but he's a big time lib. He was really into it. And so this is a very like one issue that the Democrats and Republicans can actually agree on. And I think that's pretty cool. And could Trump be the guy that gets us the transparency? I don't think he really cares about the UFOs. He went on Rogan saying that he would do it like day one, which, he's always been a bit full of shit. But I think his Republican colleagues in the Congress are going to try to hold him to that because they're really into this. And even the Democrats said, one of the Democrats on the panel said that Trump said that he would be willing to disclose this information, and now we need to hold him to it and challenge him to it. And I think this is probably, if Trump doesn't do it, I don't think that we're ever going to get there, to be honest with you, because he seems like the type of guy that just doesn't fucking care. Like he's not really into the institutions, and that's a big reason why he got elected, is because he's willing to blow everything up. And so I think it's probably one of those guys like consequences be damned and try to disclose it. Now the problem is there's so many bureaucrats, there's so many like spooks and spies and all that stuff. They're going to hold on to that information as much as possible and not give it out. Especially if all this is just our own technology, and what they don't want is our adversaries to find out that we got this stuff. We just haven't figured out a good way to use it yet, or we're waiting for the right time to display it and to debut it. That all could be true, but I think that if it is extraterrestrial stuff, and I'm not saying that it is, but if it is that, I think that we're ready to handle this information. I really do. And I think that it would be surprising to most people, but it wouldn't be that surprising given all these leaks and all the videos that we've been seeing over the years. I think that the country and I think the world is ready for this type of information. And I'll be honest, I think that most people just won't believe it anyway. They'll be like, oh, you're full of shit. So they'll actually, and I'm kind of like there too. Like, I think I need to see like a legit UFO, and I need to see like an alien, and it not be AI. Like I gotta get like hard evidence and hard data. But my mind's open to this. It really is. I'm not really open to like ghosts, but like UFOs, definitely open to that. But I'll continue to cover the story. They also, they went in front of the Senate, but not really much happened there. So, but Congress, they actually asked the tough questions and they got to the bottom of some stuff. So, that's cool. All right, next segment. So let's move from government hearings to something a little more close to home, literally. Earlier this year, a helicopter over New York City captured footage of a mysterious orb-like object moving at incredible speed above the Hudson River. The footage taken during a routine news segment on congestion pricing wasn't noticed until the broadcast aired, catching the attention of viewers and the station's anchor, Dan Bowens. Bowens posted a clip online asking if anyone could identify the object. Harvard professor Avi Loeb. Avi is a bit weird, but he's a smart guy. Harvard professor suggested it was likely an optical artifact caused by the helicopter's glass, but others weren't so quick to dismiss it. Now, Avi Loeb is usually quick to believe this stuff, so if he's saying it's not, probably not. But I thought it was interesting nonetheless. He said online theories range from drones to secret military aircraft and, of course, extraterrestrials. Considering the numerous reports from military pilots of objects with similar behavior, is it so far fetched to wonder if this orb could be connected to larger UAP phenomenon? We talked about the congressional hearings before. Michael Schellenberger said, and he specifically in his Immaculate Constellation report spoke of orbs being identified and captured. Orbs, like just these circular, spherical, whatever, like crafts. So orb is kind of like the hot button thing right now. And I've seen some videos of some orbs out there, and people have their thoughts and opinions on what these orbs could be. And I legit don't know. But let's go ahead and, if you guys are watching this on the video, let's go ahead and look at the New York Post. Oh shit, they're gonna give me a commercial. You dicks. Okay, I gotta go through a commercial first. All right. What in the hell? Okay, we're not doing that. Sorry. It wanted to go to a commercial. I can't do the commercial on this. So, look, take my word for it. I don't think it's a UFO. But it happened over New York. So, I thought it was interesting to say the least. Okay, here's a picture of it. I'll pull up a picture of it. But the video just kind of flew by it. Right there. Let's see if we can zoom in here. So this is the thing that was just kind of floating. I don't know what that is. That could be a balloon. It's pretty big if you think about it. Look at the scale. Like here's the buildings over here. So this isn't that. This is pretty far away from the helicopter. So that could be pretty good size. Oh, okay. Here's the video. See, look, there it is floating right there. Hold on, let's. Oh, you bastards! They got me with another commercial. Okay, let's go to the beginning. Okay, here we go. So Fox 5 in New York. Look, it's just floating along there. That's pretty weird. I don't know, man. I don't think that's just an optical illusion, because that is flying towards the helicopter, and then it just kind of makes a little turn there. I don't know what the hell it is. And it's unclear whether it's a real-world object or light refraction. I don't know if it's a light refraction. That seems weird. All right, let's get out of there. But yeah, UFO sighting. So each week, if there's like a new sighting and you guys see one, just send them to me. But I'm gonna be taking a look at them. New York is no stranger to UFO sightings. In fact, there was a documentary, a very good documentary, on the Manhattan alien abduction from the 80s. It's on Netflix. It's about Linda Napolitano's claims. And, a lot of people doubted her story, and for a good reason to doubt the story. She came across as a bit full of shit. So let's just talk about her for a sec. Napolitano, 41. She's living with her husband and two sons in an apartment near the Brooklyn Bridge at the time of the alleged abduction 35 years ago. She said on that night of November 30, 1989, so we're coming up on the anniversary, she was lifted out through her apartment wall in a beam of light, soared above the East River into the sky over Manhattan, and into a clam-like alien spaceship that appeared to contain a volcanic fire. Napolitano shared her story with Bud Hopkins, a UFOologist or ufologist, whatever they call it, who was in the midst of documenting a case study centered around what he believed to be a credible individual. The alleged abductee's hypnotic regression in the days after the event is shown in the docuseries. Oh, I felt like the electricity just went through me, Napolitano says in one exchange with her eyes closed and Hopkins leaning over her, head in hand. So the video, so they filmed that, right, of her kind of recounting the stuff. And if she's acting, she's very good. And I say that knowing she was acting. So, like, she could have been like a Hollywood star. But she said there's someone in the room, the allegedly hypnotized Napolitano says in the footage. She then describes being lifted through her solid door, floated in the air in her night town, and drawn into a fiery clam. Interview footage, both contemporary and from the early 90s, show witness accounts of varying credibility and veracity. Many critics later poked holes in her claims. So I don't want to spoil it. But by the end of it, you come away knowing that this is a hoax. And she went to great lengths to get this hoax going. She even brought her own son into the hoax, and the son is like an adult male and still believes in it. He either believes it or he's still covering for his mom. But he was like 10 or 12 years old, and he was saying he was abducted by aliens too. So the mom brought the son in on that. And it got even more elaborate, where she was like making phone calls using different voices and writing letters. You're trying to use different handwriting to fool this guy, Bud Hopkins. And his wife ends up catching the whole thing. And it becomes a big deal. But like the documentary never outright says that the whole thing was a hoax. People on the documentary say it was, but she's still contending that her story is true, that this really happened. Her son too. So it's a wild documentary. I strongly recommend you guys go take a look at it. But and then there's of course John Lennon. John Lennon reported seeing a UFO in New York on August 23rd, 1974. The famed singer-songwriter said in an interview after the event that he had seen a unique aircraft zooming around the East River from his apartment. Up there, I saw a UFO, Lennon said to an interviewer, pointing to his penthouse apartment that overlooks the water. Now, John Lennon, 1974, very likely, partaking in the green medicine. And it was a lot stronger back then. And it went down the river, turned right to the United Nations, and turned left and down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near, Lennon said, animatedly to the interviewer. Lennon described the craft as being silent and dark, and he said it was round, black or gray in the middle, with blinking lights that looked like light bulbs circumscribed on the sides, and it was completed with a red and light on its top. Lennon tried to take photos of the craft, none of which came out legibly, and even called the cops, who said they had received other calls about an object flying through the sky, according to the New York Daily News. Lennon also commemorated the occurrence in linear notes of his album Walls and Bridges, writing, on 23rd August 1974, 9 o'clock, I saw a UFO. So, yeah, rich UFO history in New York City, to include John Lennon's UFO sighting. So they just keep coming. All right. I got two more stories to talk about. I did have another story, but I think I'm going to save that for episode 2. I'm going to tell you guys what that is. I'm going to give you a little teaser for episode 2. So let's head now to the small village of Pak Chong in Thailand, where something sinister has been stalking the night. Earlier this month, villagers woke to find over a dozen chickens slaughtered in gruesome ways. Some had puncture wounds in their necks and were completely drained of blood, while others were decapitated. There were no tracks, no signs of a predator. It was as if something supernatural had descended upon the village. The story reminds me of the infamous chupacabra, a creature from folklore said to drain the blood of livestock. But could this be something else entirely? Perhaps a cryptid or even an unknown predator. Or is it just an eerie coincidence? Cattle mutilations and livestock mutilations are always really fascinating. 9 out of 10 times it's usually a wolf. So it can be explained away, but there have been some that you just can't explain. Like the carcass remains intact and then the blood just gets drained out. It's weird. And this story was pretty fascinating. It's probably like again like an animal of some sort, like a wild dog. That's a lot of times that's what happens, or a wolf. But I don't know about if they have wolves in Thailand, but it could be something. Could be something. But that was a weird story. The pictures online are kind of gruesome, but I'm not going to show those here. All right, and lastly, I'm always going to try to do something historical here. So now let's take a detour into the world of unsolved mysteries. In 1987, so this would have been November, I want to say 21st or 22nd of 1987, someone pulled off one of the most bizarre stunts in broadcast history, the Max Headroom signal hijacking. This incident occurred in Chicago when an unidentified person wearing a Max Headroom mask, so Max Headroom was like a TV character in the 1980s, interrupted two television broadcasts. During the hijacking, the figure delivered nonsensical messages and laughed maniacally, and even spanked a rubber fly swatter. The broadcast interruptions lasted only a few minutes, but they shocked viewers and stumped investigators, and to this day, no one knows who was behind the hijacking or why they did it. Was it a prank? Was it a protest or something else entirely? I don't know, but to this day, people in Chicago still talk about that. And they never caught the guys. So that's an unexplained phenomenon, unexplained mystery right here on the Witching Hour. Now, next time on the Witching Hour, and again, I don't know when this is going to be, we're going to talk about the first X-File, or the original X-File, the Beast of Glacier National Park. This is a true story. J. Edgar Hoover's involved, FBI is involved. This is how they got the ball rolling back in the day. This is from 1946, Glacier National Park in Montana. Lots of crazy stuff happening in this story. So I'm going to save that for next week. I was going to talk about it this week, but I'm coming up on my time here. Now, we didn't get to an hour, but I want to save the story for next week because I want to have another episode. So the first episode, or the first X-File, is coming up next time. So tonight we explored mysteries that challenge the boundaries of science, history, and beliefs. From UAPs defying physics to beasts lurking in the wild, these stories remind us of how much remains unknown. Thank you for joining me on the first episode of The Witching Hour. If you enjoyed this journey into the strange and unexplained, please subscribe and leave a review. So if you're listening to this on Patreon and you want more of this content, and you like the content, drop me a comment. That's how I know, because I don't get statistical data about who's listening and who's watching. Drop a comment, like legit. And then if you have a story that you want me to talk about, link the story to me and I will take a look at it and I will put the notes together and I'll talk about it right here. So right now, in my next episode, I only got the one story. I'm doing the first X-File, so I'll have some time to do some other stuff. So if you have a story that you want me to take a look at, either modern day or historical, drop it, let me know. It could be anything of, like I said, paranormal, like serial killers, conspiracies, UFOs, UAPs, cryptids, any type of weird, any type of mystery, any type of that. I want to talk about it on this show, and I want you guys to be a part of it. And then when I get the opportunity, I'm going to try to do a live episode of this, and you guys can drop comments in there. Or if you have like a story that you've encountered, right, something's happened to you and you want to talk about it here, let me know, and I'll interview you right here on the podcast, right here on the Patreon. But yeah, please feel to reach out on social media, and then of course right here on the Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, keep your eyes on the sky as your door is locked and your mind's open. This has been The Witching Hour with Mike Gilbert, and until next time, mahalo. Let's flicker